of Gravity Sketch formally is let's go one by one and please give me a short summary of what your final studio project is about. What are you designing, and basically what are the implications of what you need? Because the context is we're going to be spending the next 3 weeks using these headsets and using Gravity Sketch, and I have a very specific method that is built and tested. I've done it many times before. This is in collaboration with Gravity Sketch, but I want it to work for your studio as much as possible and also for your website. So going back to the studio presentations, well, it's really cool that you'll have a chance to show it to Ying Ying, to other professors, to guests if they come from industry. That's awesome. You can get good feedback. However, the place, as you know, where it really matters is your website. Your website is people will hire you from your website. So from now on, start thinking about how will you show this type of content on your website. What I'm teaching you from Gravity Sketch is designed to be shown exactly on your website. Twinmotion is the same. So let's keep these conversations in mind. And if you have any other questions, in the past few weeks, some of you have reached out separately asking questions on co-op topics, have asked for advice, things like that. That's always on the table. Please always reach out if there's anything like that. I can point you in the right direction. But let's get started in no particular order. I'm just going to go from how I see you on the screen. So let's start with Jason. Jason, please give us a quick summary of what your final studio project is and what are you designing? What are you creating?
So my final studio project will be a two-seater micro city car that is only limited to city driving. And if it's on a sunny day or a good weather, it can have a taxi capable ability to have different to haul different people around the city.
Awesome. So micro car for two people. Very good. Jacob, you're the next one on my screen.
I'm doing a food delivery mobility device, basically being able to create a food delivery option that can heat or cool packages. That way there's like an in-between versus like the micro mobility little robots that deliver food and like a semi that would be like refrigerated. So putting something in between so it's easier to create that network of vehicles that can deliver cold or hot food.
Interesting. The two questions I have is, can you give me a reference of the size? What size is it comparable to? What kind of vehicle? That's
It's
the
a
first
little
one.
it's a little bit shorter than a Honda Pilot, but bigger than a I think it was a shoot. I have my package somewhere. Um,
That's okay.
bigger than a Chevy. I can't remember what the name of that Chevy I used as reference was. Anyways, it's smaller than a Honda Pilot. It's tall, but it's about 1.5 times the width of a traditional car, and it's about 85 inches in wheelbase, so
Got it.
slightly smaller than a Civic's wheelbase.
Okay, so basically it's big, right? It's a little bit smaller than a big size SUV. So it's an SUV size vehicle. The main component here is it's about delivery goods. So people are not in it. However, people are around it and around the system. So that's where VR Gravity Sketch can be a good tool, is supporting understanding the user interactions. I'm taking these notes because we will all be building these things in VR. Many of you probably already have if you've used the tool. Okay, very good. Let's keep going. Emily, what about you?
It's a two-person car to the airport and back, and it's geofenced to not go on the highway.
To not go on the highway, so it goes specifically on secondary roads?
Yeah, I don't think it will go above like 45 miles an hour
Interesting. Just
kind
out
of
of
thing.
curiosity, how did you come to that conclusion? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I was talking to Tim about it, and that was his recommendation. Um, yeah, and it's fully autonomous. So
Okay, and but what is the main argument? Is it efficiency, safety? Is
I think
it
safety is the issue. Yeah.
okay? Very interesting. Two persons, so pretty small, right? So is it
Yeah. It's about the size of a Camry, but it's meant to carry like all of the luggage you would need to. So one half of it is storage, and then the other half is for the two people.
Got it. So sedan size, more or less. So this kind of comment may benefit everyone in the class. I mean, we are designers, which means we balance form and function. We've heard this before. Function is what we just answered with Emily's conversation. So it's about safety, it's about efficiency. Let's think about the other side. What about it? What is appealing about the fact that it doesn't go on the highway? So think of experience. Highways are pretty boring. They're pretty plain. So part of your argument is you get to really experience the city that you're taking the ride in. So really, that journey, my advice is make it very, very experiential about, no, I'm seeing the local shops. I'm seeing the local streets. Maybe there's something exciting there. I'm not just seeing concrete on the highway. That's balancing the experience aesthetic side, which with function and yeah, touch point side. But okay, very cool. Emily, two-person kind of AV car. Thanks. Alexa, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm doing a fully autonomous hitchless micro camper that goes behind a bike.
Also, you haul it on your bike, on your motorcycle. You
No, like a
pull this.
bicycle.
Oh, a
But
bicycle.
it's hitchless, so it sort of just follows you behind using, sensors and stuff.
How so? Since it follows you on a bike, it's probably fairly small. What can you compare it in size to?
So it's I could probably compare it in size to um
Like a stroller or bigger than a stroller?
bigger than a stroller. Its dimensions are about the size of a twin bed, I would say.
So it's longer than, like
Yeah.
it's a longer. Okay, very, very good. So same thing as Jacob, in the sense of you're designing an autonomous unit, which means people are not in it, they're around it, and there are touch points of how they interact with it. So in
Mhm.
VR, that will be pretty important to mock up, maybe, and this is something we will use, is the CAD model in VR of your unit. We can duplicate it a few times and basically recreate a sequence. So step one, this is what it looks like with people doing A, step B, step C. VR as an experiential tool can be very powerful. So again, the reason why I'm asking you all of this is because I don't want to waste your time in the next 3 weeks. I want you to learn the tool and master the tool, but I want you to apply it directly to something you will show in a few weeks. So let's make that happen. Okay, very good, Alexa. Miriam, what about you?
I'm doing a wheelchair accessible autonomous vehicle. Um, I'm trying to package two people in it. One side's going to be always just like the wheelchair accessible side. The other side should be convertible between like another wheelchair user or another person that doesn't use a wheelchair. And the two things I'm trying
Okay.
to package within it as well, I need to use a wheelchair lift, so I kind of have those dimensions to work with, and this like automatic restraint that Union was telling me about, where it kind of is just like a back post and then it has pieces that come out from the side and grab the wheelchair.
Okay, very cool, very cool, and it's really good to think of a use case where it requires very specific usability. I mean, your wheelchair user has very specific needs. So you mentioned two people. Is that two people total, or one wheelchair user plus two people that are not wheelchair users?
Two people total, so it's always going to be one wheelchair user on one side, and the other side, like it just if it's used, should be either another wheelchair user or another person.
Okay, yeah, and I'm pretty sure at this point you've all done a pretty detailed user journey, understanding the step by step, and like, for example, in your case, how a wheelchair user gets into a car today. It's not an effortless experience. It can be painful in terms of how difficult it is, and more importantly, in many cases it's not dignified. I'm telling you this, I've done some projects in accessibility, and many wheelchair users don't feel dignified because this is I mean, you're put on the spot. It seems like, that they don't feel like this is really something that represents them. So you have a really unique chance, similarly to Emily. on the function, it does A, B, and C, but on the design experience side, think of a dignified experience. How can this really be effortless, make them feel empowered, make them feel like they don't need other people, for that case? And yeah, very good. VR will be a very, very good tool, especially if you find a 3D model of a wheelchair and you bring it in one-to-one scale. You will be able to mock up very accurately and in experience. Like you'll be in VR one-to-one scale and you will sit down and see if you have enough room. So very good. The last thing I'll say with yours, Miriam, is that in your case, your main user, your target user is a wheelchair user, right? So make sure that the experience is the best possible for them. Your secondary user is a person who doesn't use a wheelchair. It's okay if you choose some compromises for them, but not for the wheelchair user. Case in point, you may have a bench that folds down and accommodates a wheelchair user. And if you don't need a wheelchair, then you fold it up and you can sit down. It's okay. Most people who don't use a wheelchair can accommodate, but not the other way around. So that's what happens with extreme use cases. That's what we call, like, in percentile, we talk about the first 5% or the last 5% in terms of usability. If you solve for an extreme user, most people will be able to accommodate, but not the other way. So that's where it gets really interesting. And yeah, I mean, think of, and this is for everyone, think of an employer looking at your project. What about it is unique, it's innovative, or stands out? It doesn't have to be flashy. It just has to make sense and be a good idea, right? VR can be a very good tool, and that's the process that we will go through. Okay, Riley, moving on to you. What's your project about?
So mine is a airport transit vehicle in between terminals, so inside the airport as a substitute for the golf cart. Seats about 4 to 6 people, not including the driver. And its whole like goal is to have like a zero turn capability, so that you don't have to back up into people while they're walking through since it's so crowded.
Is it open or closed? Like, what is the process of it?
Yeah, it's open, so it doesn't have like a roof or anything of that nature.
Okay, so similarly to everyone before, what is your, for example, your innovation compared to what you said, like the current long golf carts that many airports have? Like, what are you doing differently, or what are you targeting differently?
Just first off, the accessibility nature. A lot of times
Okay.
people who use the golf carts are in need of assistance with like moving around. So having like a lower platform and like more like better seating. Not more better is not a word, but better seating is like something that helps with that accessibility nature. And then also, like I said, that zero turn capability. A lot of times golf carts have to back up and like fully reverse in order to go the right direction. So either having that or having the ability to just flip sides so that you can go forward and backward without having to like take up more space trying to turn and go the other direction towards another terminal.
Okay, very good. This question is for you, but also for everyone. Is the project meant to be very future focused? Do you all have different years or dates for it, or like what is the future timeline for this?
It's supposed to be 10 years out, but I think we all also just agreed on 2040.
2040. Okay, so 15 years or so. The reason why I ask is that's a very important component that you will bring in terms of innovation. You have a unique opportunity in which, as I've mentioned before, this is called a vision project. This is not a production project like the power tool. This is a vision project. 15 years out, technology trends. You can make an informed guess. It doesn't have to be as believable as a right now project. You can make a guess, an informed guess. So to your point, Riley, really think of the technology side. How can 2040 be a year where this solution is better, more, let's say, safer, more accessible? Think of sensors. You said 4 to 6 people plus driver. My question is, why do you need a driver in 2040 in an airport? So it's an open question. Maybe you do if you need some, like you said, accessibility. Maybe you need someone to facilitate a few people that can't get on their own, maybe. If the question is you've already designed it so everybody can get on it, maybe you don't need a driver. In some of the most stable environments is, for example, an airport. I mean, you have people transit, people going back and forth, but the speeds are pretty slow. So that should be a point for everybody too. Think of technology. how, and don't do it for the sake of technology, but really to address the important components. But awesome, very good. So I'm just getting an idea of the size. Seamus, let's move on to you. What's your studio project about?
I'm doing a tour vehicle for Tokyo, 2040, and I'm looking at curating a space that it is very fun, playful. So for example, exterior seatings opportunities. So like, can you sit or climb onto the roof?
Okay.
Or can the rear seat flip? Or is there ways to expand the vehicle so um, you can curate like a fun environment to hang out around? Um,
Okay.
Also, it's not like a bus stop where you're stopping every few minutes. It's more of like a long graded travel, so more comfortable seating opportunities.
As far as benchmark, let's compare this a vehicle that we know. So how big is it?
I did mid-size SUV. So I'm trying to think mid-size like um
Okay.
CRV, I think,
And how
or anything like that.
and how many people did you say again?
Five.
5 people. Okay,
Five people.
good. Awesome, awesome. Okay, good to know. And yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm sure you're very close to your final. I mean, you already have close to a final package. I'll explain in a few moments, but this week really will be about refining that final package, but in VR and with a few components that I'll mention.
Cool.
Okay, Grace, last but not least, what is your process about in
So
your
my
final?
project is, like I mentioned, it's a one person compost truck meant for urban cities, and it hauls compost buckets that I'm also designing. And so basically, like, uh, somebody living in an apartment or somebody with not enough space in an urban setting can get a compost bucket and use it for the week. And then the truck comes to pick it up, and the truck just holds a full bucket. And then the user receives an empty bucket from the truck. And then the truck takes all the compost back to like a community garden or farm or something like that, where it can dump off the full buckets.
Okay.
Yeah.
So two quick questions are, how big is it? So is it a micro truck or is it like a bigger truck? That's my first question.
I based it off of a Honda CRV, so it's about
Okay.
a midsize.
Okay, SUV, very good. And my second question is, do you need one person to be in it, or what do you mean by one person?
Yeah, so I was thinking that it would have one driver, and that driver is just there to load the buckets on and off instead of having like a automated system for that.
All right. Okay. Very good. Very good. So indeed, I think as a class we have a very different, set of projects. So it's very enriching, honestly, to have 8 or 9 people designing very different things because you become almost like a specialist in the context of your project, but then your classmates do something different. Something cool that I can give you as a heads up is the outcome, the very final step of our project in this class will be to build a VR presentation room. But something I haven't done with students like in this context before is we will build one. So we will have one VR exhibition room of all of your projects by the end of this mini project. But then in the final of studio, that's something that we can, propose also to Ying Yang and the class is to have final presentation room of every project in the class that anybody can, if you set it up in VR, you can walk through it and there's quite a lot to do. Okay, class, all sounds good. One question as a show of hands from 1 to 10, how familiar or how confident are you in Gravity Sketch? 10 meaning you are an expert who can mock up and build anything that you can think of. 1 meaning I have turned it on once and I know more or less what the main menu looks like. 5 meaning like I know enough that I think I'll pick up more things quickly. So just a show of hands, 1 to 10. Okay, I have a 7, I have a 1, I have a 6, 5, 8, 4, 4. Okay, all right. So a bit across the board. So I think, Grace, in your case, you showed a 1. Tell me a little bit, like, what are your main concerns? I mean, we'll be diving deep in the next few weeks, so I just want to get a bit of an overview.
Yeah, so I've turned it on like once or twice and I've played around with it. But nothing too serious yet. So I just don't
Played
have that much experience.
and played around with it, meaning in Gravity Sketch. So you've
Yes.
played in Gravity. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So that's already more than a 1, maybe. But
Oh, okay.
but this is good. This is good, and the benefit. So let me just say one last thing before we get into the project. This will be a use case that I would hope not only us benefit from it, but we'll be documenting it well enough. And I ask you to do the same. Let's document this process really good, because something I can try to do from our end is to show and pitch this as a use case for Gravity Sketch. We're learning VR in just 3 weeks. We're diving into the weeds of it. We're doing it remotely too. So leveraging the power of VR, and it's a cloud-based software. So let's keep that in mind. Okay, any final questions before we move on, or any comments on Twinmotion, co-ops, studio, and so on? Okay. On the co-op side, feel free to reach out separately if you want to have a conversation. Maybe from time to time I'll pull you aside and just check in and see, where we are. Okay. So let's start from the beginning. This is all recorded. What I do ask, especially today, everybody, is that you have your headset powered, ready to go, connected to the Wi-Fi, like I mentioned in the post. These are the boards that we've used so far, Twinmotion. I created a new one, and as you can see, these post-its can take you to different boards. Here's where we will be posting some raw process in the next few weeks. This is the lecture that I'll be showing you today. So let's go through a bit of the project. You've seen this lecture before, so I'll take it step by step, but I basically will jump right into the demo side today, and I will show you some things that will be pretty critical. So we're on week 9. This is a shorter semester. The master copy, I think we're probably scrapping just because I think we can benefit a lot more from supporting Studio in the last 2 weeks. By the time we get to week 11 or 12, we'll check in again and I'll talk to you about it. There's a benefit for that assignment, but maybe it may be an even better benefit to spend more time in Gravity Sketch and in your final Studio. So what are the next 3 weeks about? It's a Gravity Sketch bootcamp. Gravity Sketch and VR have so many different types of applications. These are the 3 most important applications that I will teach you, which I've broken into 4 components, are number 1, function, packaging. So VR as a one-to-one skill prototyping tool is extremely powerful in terms of validating ergonomics and just touch points. So this is an example of a very rough beginnings of a package sketch, but this is a 3D sketch that you can experience. This is very powerful. Second component is a bit more on the design and aesthetics side. The benefit of you right now in Studio, and the reason why this project is happening right now, is because you already have a defined direction. This will help you refine it. So the idea with Gravity Sketch is that you don't use it as the single tool for everything. You use it as a tool in conjunction with other tools. So what I'm saying is you may have a rough 2D package. From here, you can take screenshots. You can go back to paper, sketch on it. If you have aesthetic sketches, you can adapt them to the package. This is what a typical 2D sketch looks like. And then the idea is you start creating a 3D sketch. So from a 2D sketch to a 3D sketch, and then from a 3D sketch to a 3D surfaced model. Gravity Sketch has sub-D environment. I will give you resources and we'll go through it. It's extremely powerful. In the past few years, I mean, it's become very powerful. So you can 3D model pretty much everything in Gravity Sketch if you wanted to. If, at least from my perspective, if you wanted to really appropriate Gravity Sketch, you don't need CAD for a studio like this one, for example, your main studio, because you can get a pretty solid 3D model just from Gravity Sketch. And then the third separate area, which in this case I'm breaking into the 4th component, is this idea of presenting. So the first three are VR for creation, package, and aesthetics, and then the other one is VR for presentation. You can exhibit your work in a very, very powerful way. There, as you can see, there are a few links in here. Let's click on one. This resource is called Car Design Academy. These are very, very professional resources on different aspects. So you can click on some of these. They have very nice videos in them. So I recommend you do that. I'm putting a few. And this is the Behance project that you've seen before in class. This is the one I created some years ago just to basically explain some of the process. The process, as you know, is an iteration back and forth process. So you have your package before this, then you start your aesthetics, hand sketches, VR model, hand sketches, VR model, until you have a direction. This is the type of content I want you to be able to show on your website. Like, this is what a typical file of yours will look like in the next few days. This is what we will really, really begin creating. As you can see, this is the iteration process. These are some models. There are other plugins that I've shown you before, and we can do a demo on these. This one is for showing an interactive 3D model. So again, this is a website project, and I have given the audience the chance to spin this around, to set viewpoints, to do whatever you want. So your audience is interacting with your model. You can look at the surfaces here. They're pretty good. They're pretty solid. I did this 100% in Gravity Sketch. So even, complex surfaces, complex transitions, corners, that's the power of sub-D modeling. So anyways, you can look at this project. It shows some of the step-by-step. It has some tutorials in it. The thing here, though, is I'm providing many resources and I'm giving them to you, but I expect you to look through some of them and filter through the ones that are helpful. These are the 3 weeks. This is what we will do. This week, well, this is the video you just saw. This week is all about the package, the vehicle package. So I know you have a couple iterations. The idea is VR is so quick. It's so quick. Once you have a base model, you can modify it and duplicate it endlessly. So I do ask you to provide, 10 is a number, but I ask you to provide a few loose versions of a package like these. But then what I'm really checking next week, next Monday, is this final detailed package. In here, I'm providing a link of an image that shows. You know the H Point book. You can download it here. Basically, what it shows is that package from H Point. So H Point, if you Google H Point package, this is what a more defined vehicle package looks like. I know you've been hearing this all semester and you probably want to be done with it, but this is your final package, so it's pretty important. In here, I know you can see it pretty small. Let's see if I'll enlarge it here. A really nice vehicle package shows the relationship of people to the entire vehicle. What is the headspace, the headroom? What is the visibility if you're a driver? What is the legroom if you're a driver or passenger? Storage. Most of your projects include storage. In this case, they're showing golf bags. This is a 2D package. It shows dimensions. It shows even some of the powertrain and those things. It shows it in a few views. Benefit of VR is, again, it's a 3D model that you can spin and experience in every single way possible. So the expectation of you in the next week is to go through a couple quicker iterations, refining them, but then making your final package in VR more or less at this level where you have all the big touch points. And this is something that will be extremely beneficial. I'll stop there because next week is about the next part that you saw, a little bit of the aesthetics, then a bit on the surfacing, and the final week on the presentation room. You have access to this lecture. There are many examples in each of the components. As you can see, examples that you can look. There are videos, for example, sometimes files. And in this case, there are entire demo videos that I've done that are saved that you can review. I'll be doing some of those today also. But the idea is that you become comfortable with the tool. So this is really what we will focus on today. Let me switch for a moment to something very important, landing pad. So, since you all have opened Gravity Sketch already, I assume and I expect that you are already in landing pad. what is landing pad? So this may seem like a quick refresher to a few people that have been using the tool, but it's important, especially since we're diving into it, for me to recap. If you just Google, landing pad, Gravity Sketch landing pad, basically with the same account as you log in on your headset, you log in here. Landing pad is your cloud storage for Gravity Sketch. It's extremely powerful, very beneficial. One thing, when you log in, you should have this, My Workspace. It should be with your name and you can have different files. But also something very important for our project is that you have access to the EDU University of Cincinnati. Please check today. And if you don't have access, let me know. Send me your email that you log into Gravity Sketch and I will add you. I'm the administrator of our Gravity Sketch account in UC and I can add you here. The benefit is you have, once you're in the EDU account, you have access to so many things that are important. Let me just quickly turn my camera off so we don't, it doesn't take the bandwidth. And I'll be sharing my VR headset screen in a moment, so that's probably useful. Please let me know. You should have access to EDU, University of Cincinnati, and it includes many different folders, many different assets, but also you should have access to your uh, personal workspace. The really cool thing about this is it works like any drive, any OneDrive or Google Drive. You can save, you can filter by different things. You can upload anything. GRS, meaning Gravity Sketch files, you can access them here and you can filter them here. A very important comment that I'll mention in VR is make sure that when you create a brand new file, that it's being saved on the cloud and not on the device. I'll show you where that is. It's important that it's switched on the cloud so you can access it here. You can also take screenshots from VR. These are quick screenshots of, some of the recent projects I am working on for different things, very quick ones. You can export the 3D model. You can export as CAD file. So this is an FBX file that I converted in Gravity Sketch. You can export as FBX, IGS, STL, OBJ, and so on. You can import 2D images. So this is a 2D image that I uploaded from Google, but if it's uploaded here, I can open it in VR. Again, screenshot, it's extremely powerful, so leverage that. And one really cool capability is you can open Gravity Sketch files from here, also from the browser. You can visualize them, you can take screenshots, you can toggle different layers. So let's see if this one loads, even though it's a slightly bigger model. So it's a pretty nice, clean sketch. And as you can see, it's not complete. I'm actually activating the layers. Look at how good in terms of quality you can get. So it's a pretty nice, and this is a student model. This is not my own, but look at how nice it is already. And it has an interior as well, as you can see. It has some issues in the packaging. I would modify a few things, but for the purposes of what we're doing, look at how I can visualize it here. I have more options. I can change the environment. I can change HDR, shadows, a few things. I can toggle the layers and I can export from here different things. You can export to other software, to Rhino, to Moto, Alias, and so on. Okay, this is landing pad in a nutshell. Are there any questions on landing pad? Please feel free to jump in. And guys, please jump in at any time. This is meant to be like a refresher for some, but also a boot camp for many of us. Okay, let me switch to Gravity Sketch here to the EDU space. In the EDU space, you have two different folders, your personal ones, so you can save anything you save in EDU personal, only you have access to it. There's the EDU collab space. So these are folders that you can, if you have access to EDU, you can open. These are projects from some of my students in the past few semesters. We have examples of presentation rooms like the ones we will create. Pretty soon, not necessarily today, but pretty soon I will ask you to start working in the EDU space in a collaborative room so I can jump in and open your files and we can be in the same room and collaborate. There's a big benefit of that. Okay, so this is a landing pad. It will be very important. The next thing I want to show you is how do you cast your headset to any screen. A really cool thing is if you have the Oculus app on your phone, or you just Google Oculus casting, it should open this website where if you open it with your Oculus account, in this case, just the account I've been using with the same email, basically it opens this. And the really cool thing about that is it's a very easy way to show anybody really what you're doing in VR. So you are not seeing exactly what I'm seeing right now, but I will show you in just a moment. Once I cast the headset, I'll show you how to do that. So I'm in the process of casting my headset to the screen. You will be able to see it very soon. Okay, you should be seeing it now. I know it's beginning to load some of the quality. It's improving now. Okay, and also we are recording this, so it's okay. How you cast your headset is, as you can see from my screen, it has the AR cameras on. If I press my Oculus button, there's this pink camera. If you click on that pink camera, it opens this menu that says casting. If you click on it, right now it says it's casting, but then you should be on the same Wi-Fi of your computer and your headset, and then it should show computer, and you can do what I'm doing. So please let me know if this doesn't make sense, okay? Okay, so far so good. Right now what I'm gonna do is basically open my Gravity Sketch app, and then we can go step by step. Again, the components of today will be to really understand how to begin creating a vehicle package. You should be able to see what I'm seeing. Let me know if you don't or if you stop seeing it. Remember, with your right trigger, you can always, if you bring it close, this button that I'm showing you, if you bring it close to your headset, it activates a virtual headset, and I can grab it and throw it, and now I'm in full AR, right? And if I do that again, I'm in VR. That's a very nice way to switch between. Landing pad looks very similar to your Gravity Sketch main menu. In here, I can switch between my workspace or the EDU. As you can see, the folders will change if I do that. I'm gonna stick with mine for the moment. Just really begin exploring these things. This is very important. Very soon, we will be going into here, Landing Pad Collab, and basically what we will do is create a new room where we can all meet and collaborate. For now, I'm just going to open a new sketch. So one thing to mention is this very first demo will be a bit of a refresher to some of you. I'll be explaining some of the main tools, but I'll jump quickly also to the packaging side, so the people that know already Gravity Sketch, don't waste time on things that you know already. I'm also recording this, so if I'm a bit quicker, you can go back on the recording, but also feel free to ask me. Okay, so especially for the students who are newer to Gravity Sketch, this is really what it looks like when you open a brand new file. You have two controllers. An advice I give you is always look at the icons your controllers have, because these icons will change. So this blue button, an icon can change depending on what you're doing. Same with this one, same with the other controller. Your left controller is about settings and tools. Your right controller is about using the tool. So right now it has a preset pencil. And if I press this trigger, my main trigger, I can begin drawing, right, in space. You always have this with your joystick on the right. You always have this sphere. This is your selection sphere. It can do a lot. In this case, if it's hovering over an object, it highlights it red. And this side button is your grabbing button. So if I'm hovering over something and I press my side button, I can grab it. Notice how my icons change. Let me do that again. Look at what the icons are showing, but now that I'm grabbing something, it changes, right? So if I press the red one on my right controller, it deletes. If I press the red one with this arrow, it brings it back. If I am selecting something and then press my trigger, I can duplicate. So these are some quick ways, and as you can see very quickly, I can start creating things. I can also delete them very quickly. So get in the habit of testing some of these tools. Let me start with the basics. The blue button will always be your settings, your menu. What I was referring to in terms of cloud, when you click on this with my right controller and my right pointer and the trigger, this floppy disk is my savings menu. And look at how the slider is on save to landing pad. So anything I do will be saved there. If I slide it the other way, it saves it on the headset. I recommend you use the cloud. That's what it's for. You can save it here. You can take screenshots from it. So step number one is navigate some of these menus and really become comfortable with them. A really important one in mobility is this one, mirror. Once I activate mirror, as you can see, anything I do very quickly will be duplicated. This is a very, very quick sketch of some kind. You can delete it. Go through some of these. I personally like to leave the vertical lock. What that means, if I deactivate it, is I can spin my axis anywhere in 360. Sometimes I lock it, so I can only spin it in a few directions. It's a bit more controlled. When you press these two side buttons, that's how you zoom in. So if I press both and open my controllers, I zoom in. If I start wide, press them and shrink it, I go out. So look at how, I'll show you how to do what I'm gonna do in a moment, but just for demo purposes, this is a one-to-one scale person. If I zoom into 100%, and I put myself here, this is exactly how big a 95th percentile person is. I can verify by measuring them. There's a measuring tool. 1.7 meters, that's about 5'9" maybe. So it's not the 95th percentile, but it's just an adult percentile. You can change the units to inches and feet as well. But look at how quickly, I can validate that. So with zooming in and out, my two joysticks, if I start small and open, it zooms in, and look at how I can zoom into quite a lot. Let me zoom into the hand. Right now I'm at 13,000%. This is the knuckle of one of the person's hands, right? That big. I can also zoom out to quite a lot, like at a city scale. Look at 0.1%, I cannot even see the person anymore. This is why VR is so powerful. Now I'm back to human scale. I'm like in 20% or so. Any questions, anybody? Okay. Please jump in,
Sorry,
or
I
if you
have one
lose.
question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So bringing in the people, is that a file that we would have to download separately, or is that something that comes with Gravity Sketch?
Very good question, and an answer you'll be happy to hear. It's built in. There's a built-in mannequin, and this is made there. It's made by Gravity Sketch, and it's really, really intuitive. I jumped the gun a little bit on showing you this, so let me show you and answer that question in just a minute or so. But yes, you can. It's built in. So going back to my menu here, and please jump in and ask questions like this. This is very, very participatory. In the menu that we would look for that is this one called import. I'll get there in just a moment. I mean, the first one called settings. So look at some of these, and it has some even some additional settings. So you can go through here. If you're left-handed, you can flip the controller. Workspace, this is your environment. So look at how I can switch. For example, let's create something a bit different. So this is a single color. I can change the color of the environment. If I go back to my first menu, I have this thing called world axis. I can remove it, and now my environment is just completely plain. I can also have this thing called stage floor. So depending on what I'm creating, it always has a floor. If I create something here, it expands the floor, and so on. So right now it's just the person. This environment tool is extremely powerful. Right now you may think this is just a color. Not at all. Look at how, if I switch to HDR, I can start choosing more complex environments. And if I slide it to all the way here, I can download my own HDR images. Let's see which ones we have. It's loading right now. So you can download from any website, any HDR. And as you will see, look at where we are right now. This is a salt flat somewhere, I think in in Bolivia or in Africa, in Botswana, that I downloaded, and it's a really awesome reviewing space. The awesome part about it is it takes the shadows and reflections. It doesn't show it now because this is just a quick mannequin, but with your final design shown in an environment like this, it's extremely powerful. Light source you can control. I can grab this flashlight and move it anywhere. And as you can see, the shadow, it's affected. So look at how powerful this environment feature is. Let's switch back to something a bit more simple for now. Slide it back here. Just look at how I can even choose like a sky tone and a ground tone and so on. For these purposes, let's do something a bit simple, or maybe even simpler. Just let's see. Yeah, maybe something like this is okay. Just simple one tone color, maybe. Okay, let's leave it here for now. All right, that's the first menu. Beta, nothing to really worry about right now. You can look if you want. The second one was save. And as you know, this one has the save on cloud. It has screenshots. It has saving menu. And this is where you leave, exit to lobby. This is where you go back to your menu. Import, extremely important. Let me delete what I did before. Get rid of the ground floor. Import. So when you click on it, it will show you this. These are your folders from landing pad. So if I uploaded 2D images or 3D files, I will find them in the folder that I left them. So let's say this is a Google image. In this case, it's a screenshot. With my select button on the side, that's how you always select and bring anything. If my sphere is touching it, I can press the grab button and bring it here to my scene. These are my 2D images. I can organize them. And for example, remember to zoom in and out is with both sides. So you zoom in and out like that. Same thing to enlarge or reduce something. If I'm selecting them and I'm only pressing this one on the right. If I press the one on the left and open, notice how I can grow them in size as big as I want. However, right now they're locked, like they're static in the space, even if I move it. Many times you don't want that. So what you do is you select the images. And as you can see, my left controller now has an anchor button. Before it didn't have it, right? This is my settings if I press it. But if I'm selecting something, it has an anchor. If I press on it, now it's locked to the space. Also, if you bring it close to your center, to your mirror plane, it snaps to the mirror plane and you can have a very accurate image. So that's a 2D image. And you can bring any 2D or 3D files that you want. But to answer the question from before, let me just reduce these and move them away. There are many other options in here. This one is very important, built-in. If I click on built-in, and the demo from today will use this other option here. What I recommend is to bring a one-to-one skilled person. Please do exactly as I'm showing you. You don't just grab the person and drop them. You can do that, but this is no good because these are not exactly one-to-one scale. What I recommend is click on the person and look at it. Before clicking, it says click to import or grab freely the person. So I click on it. This is what should appear, this box in which you control exactly what you need. The units, let's keep it in meters for now. The orientation, so you can rotate your person. And more importantly, the scale. Please make sure it says 1-to-1. This is extremely important. It does, it says that, so I can say confirm. This is a 1-to-1 scale person. It's built in, it's really well designed in Gravity Sketch. Like any object, if my selection sphere, which with my joystick I can grow, if it is touching it, it should highlight it. And if it highlights it and I press my grab button, I can move the person. So this is another moment to show you a very important thing. Something very important in Gravity Sketch is understanding how to use the main commands. So like I said, selection sphere is one of the main ones. Selection plus a different button does different things. So if I'm hovering over something and press my grab button, this one on the side, it grabs it and I can move it anywhere. And if I release, it leaves it there. So I can move things, right? But selection and grabbing plus something else can do other things. So if I'm already grabbing it and I press my main trigger on my right hand, it duplicates every time I press, right? So look at what I just did. selection, and look at how I can grow my sphere to select all 4, or I can reduce it just to select 1. Selection, grabbing, plus red, this one means delete. And if I do it again, it brings it back. So get in the habit of learning these things. If I'm grabbing an object and I use my other side trigger, it enlarges or reduces the object. So it all makes a lot of sense, and it's pretty logical once you start doing it. But you can get pretty complex pretty quick. So look at how, I can start duplicating things. If I grab something, look at how I have a color wheel too. If I press that color wheel, I can change the color of particular object to any color. But at the same time, I can also change the opacity, the type of material. I mean, you can exploit these things if you want. Right now, we're keeping it to some of the basics. Okay, going back to the person, same thing. Anytime you have an object like this, and you select it, look at how the blue button becomes these points. This is extremely important. When I press on these blue points, it's in edit mode. So look at how that line I just drew has a bunch of points. And the same concept applies. If I select some points and press red, it deletes them. So I'm deleting a few points. And I have even more settings. This is with the purple button. I can get rid of that by pressing the purple button or bring it back. So for example, I can change the width of it, but the same concept applies. If I select plus trigger, it adds. If I select plus red, it deletes. If I select the whole object, I can move it endlessly. So these are the very main things you should know for Gravity Sketch. These are very, very important. And something more advanced that I'll show you later, which is extremely important, is how to move things accurately. Because if I just move this, I have no clue how I'm moving it or in what axis. Something really cool is if you are hovering over an object, and as you can see, there's an axis that shows. If I align my 2 controllers according to an axis, so look at how, in this case, I'm aligning them according to the red axis. Look at this red line that appears. If I'm aligning them to the z-axis, the blue line appears, and same with green, right? So what that means is, if they're aligned, I'm not pressing anything, but then I press my grabbing trigger, I'm moving something exactly on an axis. Same here. Exactly on an axis. This is very important, and it's super intuitive. And I can also duplicate things accurately. So if I'm in this axis and I press my trigger, look at how I'm duplicating exactly. And even on these points, I can duplicate it in the same increments. With the person mannequin, the same. If I hover over, select it, and press the points, look at how this mannequin has control points. These green ones are the main ones, so I can create a very simple standing position. If this person is sort of sitting down, I can do the same. However, this can be limiting. As you can see, these are very few points. So the advice, always look at your controller. Look at how in my controller, right now I'm on editing mode of this mannequin. But on my right joystick, I have these points, the green little dot that you can see. What that means is that there's an option there. So if I switch to the right, look at how I can have very different control points. These blue ones can go down to the knuckle of the finger. I can control that if I want to. Why are these helpful? Because the green ones don't give me the knees, for example. The blue ones do. So I can control accurately and create a person. Remember, this is a 1-to-1 scale mannequin. And if I had a car, for example, now I have 2 passengers right down the center. If it's a 4-passenger vehicle, well, I have that already, right? So this is very powerful. Okay, we're here. So far, so good, everybody? Any questions? Okay. So pretty soon we'll move on to the first assignment. I'm just doing a quick crash course for some people in the class. There's a video for this too. You have your import menu. You also have your export menu. So in here is where whatever model you've created, you can export it to various different software or model types, OBJ, FBX. There's also STEP, and there are OBJs and some other things. So you can really look into that. The really good news is there are layers in the same way as Photoshop and Procreate work. Gravity Sketch does the same. and you can control them really well. I highly recommend you do this because you will have pretty complex files, especially when all of us move into one collaboration room. Having control of your layers will be critical. So look at how right now I just have one layer. I can toggle the opacity. I can lock the layer, so now I can't select anything. I can unlock it. I can turn it on or off. This is just to zoom into that layer. But if I click on it, I can change the name. So I can tap on clear and just say, this is my person layer. Check, I have a person layer. I can create a new one. You can create layer groups and other things. The next one, let's create one that says sketch, for example. So look at how my person is locked in here. Let's say for some reason my person is not in the person layer. How you move things between layers is the same. You select it, you grab it, and then I drop the person, it activates green, and now it's on that layer. I can lock it, which means in my sketch layer, now I can begin doing anything I want without messing with the person, only these layers. That will be important, getting the habit of using your layers. Next one is, these are very awesome tutorials built in. So this will be helpful for some of the people who are picking up Gravity Sketch just now. In your, again, blue button, your menu, this one with the school hat, these are some really nice videos. You can filter by topic, by whatever it is that you need, and they have very specific videos that they pop up in your space. So it's very cool because you can see these videos in real time in Gravity Sketch, and I can remove them if I want to. Okay. This is an orthographic. We don't need it now, but basically once you have a pretty complex object and model, it will export and show you that in orthographic mode. And the last one, exit to lobby. Okay, those are our settings. Any questions? So far, so good. Okay, you have your blue button for settings. You have your purple button for tools. This is your bread and butter. Here's where you will create everything. One that I really, really enjoy is this stroke, custom stroke. And notice how when you click on something, you can click on it again, and it gives you even more options. If you want to just freehand sketch, you can choose ink, and this is the one I was using before. Let me also, before doing this, change the colors of my tool. I can click on this color wheel, maybe change it to blue, for example. Currently, I'm on ink. This is freeform, so anything you do, it's pretty quick. As you can see, I can, just move things around and just sketch very rough, very loose. There may be a benefit of that. If you want to be more precise, one that I really like is stroke and then point mode. The difference is anytime you click a point, it drops a point like this. Very precise. Gravity Sketch is a very loose tool. What I recommend is start simple. So start with a few points. Let's say I'm creating a canopy for this person's car. This is not very accurate, right? This is just very all over the place. How Gravity Sketch works is you just need to drop something simple, and then you can go into the edit mode of the points and start modifying. So look at how, if I bring these points close to the center, basically snaps them at the center line, which could be pretty helpful. So now I have pretty much a really nice center line sketch. And then I can start moving points. So if I want to be much more precise, I can start controlling them. If I don't have enough points, again, select, trigger, you add a new point. And then an example is I can extrude this out. Oh, I'm actually not on mirror mode. Let's see, why isn't it showing? 1 second. Let's see. Okay. So it's in mirror mode, and you can start really controlling things. So notice how I'm beginning to give this a bit of curvature like this. It's beginning to show the shape of the canopy. And you can really start validating that. If I zoom in to 100%, more or less, this begins looking like my windshield. And the benefit is you can look at this in 3D. So as you can see, this is really wobbly, which requires me to move some of the points so it's a bit more accurate. Okay, so that's basically how these work. There are many other tools. So there's a surfacing tool. We will get to this one soon, and we will have a full sub-D demo. And as you can see, just from a quick glance, you can do quite a lot. We will get there. Feel free to start playing with many of these. You have revolve. So for mobility, this one is essential, right? Many of our things that we design have wheels. There are ways to create extremely detailed and accurate wheels. In this case, I'm just basically mocking something up pretty quickly. Let's say this is one of my wheels. I can duplicate. Maybe you move it out and so on. Okay, so feel free to explore these. You have many more. Also, as you can see in my right controller, there's these tool icons. If I click on it, this is a new update of Gravity Sketch that is actually pretty intuitive. If I click on it, I can access different types of tools. The main one is Sketch, so you can actually do things with the tools, but I can also have selection, measure, which you saw me use before. I can see how big something is in VR. You can also teleport, you can have viewpoints, many other things. We'll get there. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. Does this make sense, everybody? Can I get a yes, or can I have a question if anyone has any?
I do have one question.
Yes, go for
Um,
it.
so is there a way that you can bring in like one of my like hand-drawn sketches to make sure that my 3D model is accurate based on my hand-drawn sketch?
Absolutely, yes, 100%. And in the same way, I brought those canvas images from before. So let me show you that. In the blue button, there's the import menu, import. This is how we brought the mannequin, but it's in this mode, built-in models. You must go to your landing pad. Depending on where you saved some of those sketches, you will need to find them. So let me find an example of what would look like a hand-drawn sketch. The thing is, I mean, I use Gravity Sketch quite a lot. So let's say these are good examples. So I went to import, I went to landing pad, and I found them in the folder that I saved them in landing pad. So here's where landing pad is really powerful. Anything you save, 2D or 3D, you can bring in. So the next step is with my selection sphere that I can toggle with my joystick. I hover over the image or images I want to bring, in this case, these two, and I grab them, bring them here. Right now, they're just a reference. They're more just like a mood board that I'm creating. But if you want to be accurate, let me see. I think I do have a 2D side view image of something that we can use. Maybe this one, which is an example of a wheelchair. So let's say this is my side view orthographic that I want to scale, or any image. I mean, it's better when we have a side view, a dead side view. Let me see pretty quick. If not, I can do the demo, and I mean, you will get the idea in the same way. Let's see. These are just some other student projects. I may, and the good thing is you can switch to other landing pad accounts. So like to the EDU, just toggling through a few different ones. It's okay. Let's say this is a side view. Let's pretend this is a dead side view, even though it's an orthographic. So if I have my person, my mannequin, and remember we have layers, I can unlock this person if I need to, or I can grab this image and put it in a different folder. All you need to do is begin, yeah, like bringing it into the actual place. And one thing to know is I'm bringing it close to the mirror plane, but it's not really doing anything. But look at what I'm going to do. In the recording, this will show. To grab, I use this button, but then with my left trigger, anytime I press it, it anchors it. So look at how it's forcing it to the mirror plane. I'm not having to do a big effort at that. If I press this left trigger, it anchors it. And if I release, this is exactly at the mirror plane, as you can see. If you remember what I was mentioning of aligning your controllers, if I align them vertically and then I move, I'm scaling this pretty accurately. Same in here. I can, with my um, with my uh, scale tools like this, I can more or less, let's say this is the right scale, and you should validate this for sure. But this is how I would do it. And let's say this is a side view. Let's pretend, and this is my exact side view that I would use. And then the cool thing is, you can create something and duplicate it. Okay, does that answer the question, or do you have any follow-ups with that?
That answered my original question. I do have one follow-up. With
Yeah.
the measuring tool, can you use the measuring tool to measure like an object on your canvas, or is that just for 3D objects within the space?
It's for anything. It's for anything at all. So if I click on my tools here, it opens these and I select measure. You can also change the color. So let's say red so I can see it better. And I can select this image and say, okay, 1.5 meters. I can measure nothing at all even here. The cool thing is these are objects in the same way as a line is. So I can hover over it and then click on my blue points. And now I'm able to move these. For example, I can bring it to the origin, and now I can say, okay, this is the distance from the tip of your toe to like where the backrest would be. And again, layers are super important. So this image, for example, I can drop it here, and I can control the opacity, lock it. I can rename it to canvas. I can create a new one just for since everything else is locked. My let's see, my measuring tools, I think they were built in a different layer. Here we are. So I can grab it, drop it, and then basically you end up with layers all over the place, which is really helpful. Okay, but yeah, measurement. And if I want to exit out of measurement, I click back on my tools and then say sketch. That's back. Okay, so far so good.
Yes.
Everybody, so no worries. So this is really the assignment. So from now on, everybody who tuned out for a moment, because many of you may know this stuff already, this is really the homework. So please do pay attention. And I do have videos that I've recorded before for the following. So what I'm going to show you is how to create a vehicle package. This is really what we will be doing over the next week. I'm deleting my layers in the same way as I delete an object. My selection sphere, grab it, and red button, delete. So I only have one layer right now. Maybe let's create a new one just so we can use it. Okay, this is the homework. I'm going to start from scratch. You open a brand new file. This is your brand new file. And let's keep track of when in this call this is happening. I'll let you know the timestamp because this is really it. Okay, brand new file, make sure that it's in mirror mode because we're designing mobility, it's symmetrical. Make sure you have your settings to your liking. In this case, I have my world axis. I like having that. Maybe let's have a stage floor so it shows me how big my canvas is, your environment, and so on. But then you go into import. In the import mode, you have built-in models. So the very first step is click on the person, the mannequin. It opens this box, 1-to-1 scale, as you know. Click confirm. So I just brought a 1-to-1 scale person. From what you all told me at the beginning of class, you have very different types of projects. So the main thing I ask in here is bring, just for right now, one person, leave it here static, it doesn't matter, just for the beginning, because the important step is what happens next. You have built-in models right here, but then in the corner, you have this icon, which is a car chassis. This is what I need everyone to use. You click on that car chassis and look at what just appeared. This is a built-in tool that Gravity Sketch developed for mobility design. It's extremely helpful. Many of you from my conversation at the beginning, you know already exactly what the dimensions are. So please input them. You can click here, type in the number, input that. If you have more of a freeform package right now, look at how many different arrows I have. So let's do an example. Some people in the class mentioned that they're building a micro car. Well, there are two options. One is in this menu, you already have built-in packages. This is I cannot tell you how helpful this is. This was not the case for many years. Where it says select a preset, I can click on the arrow. So neighborhood, electric vehicle, microcar. So let's go with microcar because this is what I'm going for. Click OK. See, so it changed the proportions of this, and this is the right proportion of a microcar. I can switch to, let's say, SUV. Some of you in the class are designing something related to an SUV, full-size sedan. They have every single package you can think of: supercar, hypercar, subcompact CUV, compact SUV, midsize. So Seamus and some other people mentioned SUV, midsize CUV. Click OK. See, much bigger, right? Off-road and so on. You have so many options. The one I'm going with for the demo is this one, microcar. Once I'm here, I'm not done. I mean, the overall dimensions are there, 1300 millimeters, 1800 millimeters. Look at how you can control the wheel, and you can even input the right diameter here. So some microcars have smaller wheels. Let's say something like this. I have a second arrow that can control the thickness of the tire. I can control the width of the tire. See how helpful this is? And if I wanted to play with these variables, I can, but I'm leaving it at the microcar proportions and maybe just scaling the wheels just a tiny bit. Okay, once you're done, click OK. Oops, sorry, 1 second. Let me do that again. Let's say here. To click OK, don't click here. Click on the blue button. The blue button has a check mark. Click there and look at how it's already set in stone. This is my microcar beginnings of a package. It automatically creates a new folder called chassis that you can filter through. And look at how, let's see, it has kind of a ground plane and it has 4 wheels for now. That is okay. So let's lock the chassis for a moment. If you want to edit it again, it actually doesn't let you because this is not a real object anymore. What that means is I have to go back to import and then back to chassis if I wanted to edit this. Something I recommend is once you have something that you like, let's say this is a good package, I may actually increase the wheel a little bit. You do what you do in CAD. You said convert revolve to revolve geometry. So if I click here, what it does is it turns it into a real object. So let's say I'm happy with this, that I've already, I mean, the homework is to do a few of these, so you should have at least a couple. Once you're happy with it, click, and then it creates a solid wheel that I can grab, and it has a plane. For example, I can move it. Look at how I'm aligning my 2 controllers, moving it vertically. Many microcars, the ground plane starts somewhere at the halfway point of the wheel. This is a very good starting point. And if I click on my editing menu, so if I highlight this and the points, look at how it's built in to modify different things like that. Okay, let's say this is good. If I go to my layers, this is in chassis. I can lock this, maybe turn the opacity a bit down, and I know this is exactly a microcar. If I go back to my person, the next step will be, okay, let's actually begin developing this a bit further. So this is a 2-person microcar for people that are seated. So I'm moving one of my users here, more or less in a sitting position that you can refine. If you have a 2D image, so to the question from before, if you have a 2D image here of an exact orthographic side view, you can match, you can align your person in the center, you can have a 2D image of exactly the sitting position, and you can align it just right. So it's very, very accurate. Let's say this is my base sitting position for the demo. I move my person to the side. Again, notice how I'm not just moving things randomly like that. I'm aligning my controllers. The red line appears and then I begin moving. So it's very accurate. And the same thing, once I do that and press my trigger, duplicates my user. I mean, if you're being a little bit picky, this seems pretty big actually as a package. So if I want to do a real microcar, I would probably go to my chassis layer and I can modify it. I would move it somewhat closer. Let's see. This could be a bit closer. And notice how my people are intersecting the floor, so I can move them up. Right? This is beginning to be a very, very basic package. I'm being very organized with my layers. So person, I drop them here, person, right? The other one as well. So my two people, let's see, are here. I can lock it. My chassis is here, and I can even move my layer. So I can put this one on top, and then this one becomes the sketch layer. And again, you can change the name. So what we're doing is we're creating a vehicle package. So to the question from before, the proper way to do this is really to have a nice reference image from your sketches, from your 3D package, that you can reference in here. I can also filter through just images. I'm just leaving this icon on, which means Gravity Sketch will only show me 2D images. Just kind of looking if I have something that could be useful for this. Let's go to EDU. So these are some student sketches. Let's see, reference images. These are from a couple different students. Let me know if you lose me at any point, if the Wi-Fi is okay. All right, so let's just bring something for demo purposes. Let's say this one, maybe this one. So this can be part of my inspiration, let's say up here, but this can be part of my package. So like I said before, if I select this and press the anchor, now it's not moving, no, it's not stationary. With this one, if I bring it close and press my left trigger, it should bring it to the center here. And if I enlarge it, I know this doesn't make sense with a microcard, but just bear with me for the demo purposes. Let's say this is kind of the shape. And then if I click here, I can move it. So this is what I would do. Let's say this is the exact image that is showing, the kind of car that I am designing. So that's what I would do. All right, in the layers sketch, this is my new one. When you go to your tools, I like to start clean. So using the custom stroke tool, it has many settings. One that I'd like for this purpose is planar. Planar means it uses the mirror plane, and I can even change the plane. This can get really precise, so I can sketch on a particular plane if I want. In this case, I'm just picking my centered line. So notice how I can just do something pretty quick. This is exactly at the center line, and it's super rough. This is not a very good sketch. However, if I select it and click on the points, here's where the really nice fine tuning begins. So I can delete points that I don't need. I can start really modifying things, adding points when I need them. And this is what I recommend everyone does at the beginning. What I'm creating is just a very basic shape of the center line of the card. Let's say this is more or less it. I can grab this line and duplicate it across the axis just to get a baseline of the volume. This is the most basic volume. If I select the points, I can move them of this line. Since it's mirrored, I can go back. Right now it's a planar line, which means it only moves on this plane, but I can remove that. If I slide it back, now I can move the points in, for example. So that's really what I would start doing, moving some points inboard to start giving this car the right volume. So notice how it's beginning to do that, right? Super basic shape. And again, we're in 1:1 scale, which is extremely important. So if I zoom into 100 and I'm in this passenger's view, look at how it feels. So I'm looking up, looking to the side. The cool thing is wherever their hands are is where your hands can be. So with this person in mind, for example, I can raise the hands. Let's say they're grabbing something. If I zoom into 100% and extend my arms, that's exactly where they land. They land at the hand, which means it's pretty accurate. Okay, this is extremely basic. This is the very first step of the package. This is really not a complete package in any way. What I would do is really start working with layers to add more complexity. You probably have already sketches at this level. The idea is that you begin trying to recreate some of the basic proportions of your sketch here. They should be exact. So if you have a side view sketch like this, I would bring this side view sketch exactly at the canvas and do that. One thing I'm going to show you is if my layers are unlocked, I should be able to select everything like this, align my controllers on this axis, the green line, right? And then click my trigger. And basically just then I created 3 copies, right, of the same thing. I'm going to delete this one for now. I just created 1 copy. The example I wanted to show you is this one. So I bring, let's say I'm focusing on this side view sketch that I have up here. I'm trying to scale it as close as I can to the sketch. Maybe, let me see on which layer this is on. So I may have to create a new layer and drop this image in a new layer so I can control the opacity. And look at what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to zoom in and basically trying to scale it. The thing is, this may not be a perfect side view, but I can get something close. Let's say this looks somewhat similar in terms of size. And then again, if I'm close to the mirror plane and press my left trigger, it anchors it. Now it's exactly there. So look at how that's what I'm trying to do, more or less. Why does that matter? Well, I lock this layer, go back to my sketch layer. Look at how, even though I duplicated it, it's still in the same layer. Well, this red one right now, what I'm trying to do is actually match it. And I probably need a few more points in a few places. So look at how easy it is. Let's keep it simple. Let's leave it like that. But that's a very, if I toggle my canvas, look at how different of a sketch this is. This is a very different profile. And it's based on this. So this is what I would do with your own sketches. Now that I'm here, I can say, okay, is this enough headroom? Maybe let's do the same thing as before. Duplicate it out. And to be a bit more realistic, I can move some of these points inboard, which is more representative of a 3D model. And I'm aligning my controllers so they move really accurately. And I'm beginning to create these really nice flowing character lines that then you can think of surfacing. Okay, let's see if we have enough room. Again, 100%. Head here. I look up. This may be a little bit tight. Look at how tight it is. How do we know exactly how tight it is? Well, put this here. 10 centimeters. That's not too bad. It's about, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches. So, okay, let me stop here for a second. Any questions? Does this make sense as a process? How are we doing?
Good.
Good. Okay. Okay, people. Very good. Yeah, please interrupt me if you have any questions. So this is really the beginnings of the package. The first part of the homework, as you saw from the slide that is posted, is to do a few of these, just very basic ones, in which you already have a good understanding of what your vehicle looks like, but you can refine. Let me give you a very clear example that applies to your studio. So I have 2 somewhat different, let's say, side character lines right now of the same package. Let's say I'm really gravitating towards this one, but there's something that doesn't feel quite right. So what you do is unlock all your layers, select this, duplicate it. Maybe I'm going to create 2 duplicates of just the second one. In here, now I can start really moving some stuff around and I can say, hey, well, this doesn't feel right because this is not an off-road vehicle. I really don't need, let me just delete what I just did. I really don't need this much space from the ground here. This doesn't really have to go through any rough terrain. This is a city car. Why not lower it quite a bit? So let's see, and you can know exactly how much. So right now, I don't know, 9 centimeters, so a couple inches. This feels more realistic. I mean, see how high a curb is? Maybe that's how high this needs to be. What I just did allows me to go back to my people and say, okay, you don't need to be as high, which means, again, I can grab all of these points. Well, for now, for simplicity's sake, I'm just gonna grab these two lines and just lower them like that. And then I can go a bit more specifically into the weeds and, for example, I don't know, do something like that. I can say, okay, yeah, this is too low. So I'll just align it, grab this line, and notice how I can click on points enough to give me pretty complex things. So look at how different these two vehicles are. What I just did is I made this one a bit, well, not a bit, quite a bit lower. So it's more efficient. It also feels pretty wide. So maybe that's what I'll do. Let me delete this one. It's almost like an iteration. Iteration 1, really blocky. Iteration 2, it's based on my sketch, but it's not quite there. Iteration 3, a bit lower. What I'm going to do is duplicate iteration 3 and then say, yeah, this is too wide. It doesn't really have to be that way. So I can bring my people a bit closer, almost shoulder to shoulder. I can bring my wheels closer. If remember, I have layers, so I can just activate chassis. And if I just activate chassis, I can carefully select the wheels, just the wheels, and I can zoom in and out. Let's see. Well, for the purposes of what I'm going to do, this is a trick you can apply. Create a new layer. This floor, I don't want to move. I put it there, and now I just have the wheels in this. And then if I align them, bring them much closer and just start watching for example, the feet, the room that we have in here. But actually, I can move my people back if it makes sense. So why, depending on how much storage you need, you may just need to move a few things. And look how quickly this sketch is changing. I'm just shrinking it really, truly to a tiny micro car. It probably doesn't have to be more than something like this. Maybe the roof is a little bit short now, but I can go and look at these three iterations again. Number one, yeah, it's a starting point, but it's really not there. This one is better, but it's too wide. This one is beginning to look like a city car, like a very tiny city car. And again, I can modify and move these things as needed. This begins to look much more accurate. And look how we already have some room for things. Okay, Gravity Sketch has different tools, such as text. So I can say, I can choose my font even. Let's choose any font is okay. And then I can say, just key direction is what I'm typing here. And this becomes a text object that I can move. I can scale it. So let's just scale it. And I can anchor it again with the same method with once I'm grabbing it with my left trigger, it anchors it to the center. Look at how it's perfectly there. I can also change the color since it's an object. Let's make it blue just so it contrasts. Basically what I'm showing in my file is this one is my key direction that I want to evolve a little bit more. There are a few things with it. For example, this wheel still feels a little too big. One trick I can show you from the new update is if I click on my sketch or on my tools, I can choose selection. What this does is it brings an arrow. If I click on any object, it brings this menu that you will recognize from Keyshot. This is for moving, rotating, and scaling. This is the best and most accurate way that I recommend to move, scale, or rotate things. If I want to move it, look by millimeters, I can move something very accurately. move it. You can scale with the this little box. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to scale this wheel a bit smaller and then move it back to where it needs to be. Now that I'm seeing this wheel, going back to sketch, I think I would rather stick with something like this because it says city car. It doesn't need to be. And as long as you validate this really well with your package, and it's about tweaking things enough as you go. Okay, this kind of demo should be useful to even the more advanced people because these are some new updates of the tool that are only recently available. Okay, this is my key direction. Again, the homework goes a little bit beyond this. So the homework will be to duplicate this. And as you can see, this is, I mean, I'm locking a few layers, but I can keep moving some stuff in this direction. So notice how I create a new copy, I delete the text, but in your layers, as you can see from here, I can open a new one, and then this one should really be about the package. What I mean by package is you should really start adding more objects, just like the H point image. If you remember H point, it had storage, it had any touch point, anything at all. So this is where it gets good. Everything up until now is setting up step 1 of the package, the basics. Steps 2 and 3 are really dialing in the details. So look at how, for example, in here, I can create a very simple volume of a box, or in your tools you have various different things, soft cube and that sort of thing. So look at this, for example. I can enlarge this, and let's say this is the exact size of a backpack. Let's say a backpack is exactly what you need to mock up. I should, if this is me, I would really measure this accurately. So let's go into the measurement tool and see how big this box that I just did is. I can change my color and say, okay, 30, 40, let's say 40 centimeters by 20 or something. So this should allow me to start really messing with the size of this. Let's say this is more or less it. I can delete that. Once I have a mock-up of whatever this is, I can bring it close to the axis, and this is something that allows me to more or less move it. Let's say this car is meant to carry the equivalent of, I don't know, 2 of these, maybe 4 of these. So I'm just basically beginning to put some placeholder volumes. That's really what we have in here. And let's say, you also have some under storage. And this is where it gets really powerful. I'm beginning to mock these things up. Look at how I have that. Since I have my layers, I can be very objective with what I need. So everything except for the volumes is what I'm beginning to move. This is very functional, so all it is mocking up some volumes at the moment. I may need my people. Keep in mind, we have not built the seats. So that's another thing that I would recommend is like really build your basics, your real basics. If I use my custom stroke or maybe just the surface, a really simple surface, I can just very quickly create a placeholder like this. And that should be enough. I can filter through my layers to just do something simple. You will design it, you will build it much better later. But notice how this already more or less matches. If it's too little room for what the thickness of this would be, keep in mind, this may be new to some people in the class. This surface I created again in my surface menu, just really quickly. Using the first one, you just use both triggers. It begins creating. It works like any line that you have points and you can move and do all of that. We'll have a demo on that. The cool thing is it has a thickness offset. So look at how when I do that, I can be very, it can be precise in how I control this. Let's say, yeah, it's about 40 millimeters. So already this is a 3D solid object. please ask me questions if you have any. This is already beginning to give me some ideas. I'm using one main layer, but I can control more if I need to. Another thing you can do is, okay, let's say this has some kind of a console. Since I haven't taught you surfacing just yet, you can do it as a line. All it needs to be is, in this case, custom stroke, point mode. Make sure to remove the planar feature that I showed you earlier. And let's say, okay, if I'm putting myself in here, many cars, or actually, I'm going to do something different. This is basically beginning to simulate what a console would look like. This is a shared car. Maybe it's autonomous and nobody's driving it, but I can still create something that simulates the need that this could have. So it's some kind of a surface. There may be a screen or something that projects. So I'm already beginning to mock that up. You can be more precise if you need to, for example, adding another point. I'd like to be precise with the point mode tool because, as you can see, it allows you to do quite a bit. Let's say I've already identified that this has some kind of a screen. See how quickly I sketched something and it's not perfect, but then when I go back is when these points dial in, as you can see. So this has much closer of a shape to, yeah, some kind of a screen panel. So that's really what we're beginning to do. We're beginning to mock up some of the main things. And let's see, door panels, a very important one. So if you need some kind of an armrest, well, first of all, let's go back to the person and make them have a comfortable position. So I'm relaxing the shoulders a little bit more. I'm tucking them in, maybe. If I do this with one, I can quickly duplicate it and not have to do it with the other. I lock my person again and I'm just in this layer. So this package layer, what I'm trying to do, as you can see, is really add the true complexities of the car. If I change the color, let's use green for some of the other things. So from the seat, well, see how big this tip is? With my right joystick, I can reduce it or enlarge it. Right now, I'm going to keep it very, very light and very thin. So trying to create some kind of a line, and then if I go to my edit menu, I can also change it back. Just creating some kind of a placeholder for the armrest. I can give it a bit of thickness, as you can see, adding points, and then send it back, just so it looks more of a 3D object. If you know simple surfacing, like I'm doing already, that should be the way to do it. I can move it in a bit more so it simulates that. And then once you have your person, you can already see where this is going. This is here. Okay, so I don't want to throw many more things at you. The expectation for next week is to have a very, very solid final package at a much higher level than this based on your final design, but also with every placeholder of the object. So for example, this sketch that I just did is making me realize this side view, this profile is not cutting it. This is not enough because it tapers. So I have to bring it out as like this to allow for that sort of volume. So see how it's evolving. Okay, everybody, remember this is recorded. So what I would recommend again is in your import menu, you can bring 3D objects. In some cases, for example, wheelchairs, you can download models of wheelchairs that you scale and bring in one-to-one scale. Those will be a part of your package. As much as possible, try to recreate things in Gravity Sketch. For example, this, if I need to represent the volume of, I don't know, let's say golf bags or whatever my user needs. Let's say this is closer to a golf bag, then just mock it up in low fidelity. It doesn't have to be like that. Right now it's mirrored, but look at when I edit this object, I can not make it mirror anymore. So you can be very specific. And let's say instead of these two bags, or one of them, maybe it's one of these or something, or maybe this one something else, or if it has overhead storage, you should mock that up if you're trailing something. So I will stop right here for a moment. What questions do we have? Class, anything that stands out from this file? Are we excited, scared? Is this intimidating? Please give me big of an insight into how you're thinking of this.
I'm kind of excited because it seems like it's pretty intuitive and gives you a lot for like the amount of effort you're putting in. Like you can just work on it for a little bit and get a lot out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I do hope, especially if you go back to my layers and this video will be recorded, I can make this file available to you in the EDU space, actually, if you want to. The important thing is that you know the power of setting things up and iterating from them. Look at how we started simple, then we brought the canvas, and based on the actual sketch, we created this version, and then slowly we tuned it up and evolved it here. And even at this level, you can easily duplicate it and do something else, right? That's my hope with you. Let me for a second switch back to our presentation. So again, I'm using Oculus Casting. Let's go back here for a moment. So as you can see, the real assignment in the video that we're recording right now is the third example, but there are other two videos that you can already watch about this. The idea is that you do a few mock-ups that are close to your final design at a lower fidelity, like I showed you, but then at a much higher fidelity, bring that final one next class. So before we stop the demo, are there any other questions? Okay, everybody. So a couple housekeeping things before we leave. I do want to give you the remaining hour to begin, and I'll be available if you want to, if you have questions, hands-on questions on Gravity Sketch. What I want you to do is become familiarized with some of these resources. We will be focusing on this week. One good news for you is I received an email from UC saying that we have the 4th of July coming up, and that it's up to the discretion of professors to see if they wanted to give students the class of the day before or not. I can only imagine what you would prefer. So my compromise with you is the following. What's due are these quick package sketches and one final package sketch at a much higher fidelity. These are due next Monday. I know we have the 4th coming, so my proposal is we don't have class on Wednesday. I will be available nonetheless. So if you do want to meet on Wednesday, I will be available. It's not required, but the expectation should be pretty clear, okay? The expectation should be this second point on the slide, of this part of the project. Any comments on that? Any questions? Make sense? Or do you want to have class as normal?
That sounds great.
Okay, everybody. So I'm happy to do that, but please treat it with responsibility. The expectation is this. So this is all from me. Let me switch back to the call and I will stop the recording here. I will post all of these resources